The April stats for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are out, and we have some big changes. Kingambit is now number 2 in usage on 39.16% of teams, overthrowing Pokemon like Go. And for the first time since Scarlet and Violet's release, a starter Pokemon has fallen down to UU. Both Quaquaval and the semi-newly released Decidueye have dropped down. And because of the release of Walking Wake, Slowking has seen enough usage in OU to move up from UU. We also now have the brand new ZU tier, which can allow Pokemon like Luxray and Scovillain to shine. So let's take a closer look at all the stat changes and more in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So we have a lot to talk about today. I will have timestamps down below if there's a particular topic you are most interested in. Feel free to skip ahead to it, but if you do enjoy this video, make sure you let me know by leaving a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm on my way to my end of the year goal now of 400k since we already hit 350k. So this is the March stats for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This is what affects the April tier changes. We still see Great Tusk at number 1, but we've seen Kingambit jump up from number 3, to number 2. And I'm going to compare it to last month. You see right here, Go was on 41% of teams, and now it's on 27.35% of teams, whereas Kingambit jumped up from 29% to 39%. Absolutely insane. In fact, the top 10 has completely changed in terms of what is starting to take over. Rotom has fallen down from number 6 all the way to number 19, and then we see that Corviknight has fallen out. We see the rise of Baxcalibur. I think Baxcalibur is one of the strongest pseudo-legendaries we have simply because of Terra, and the fact that it has Glaive Rush is insane, right? A lot of people just Terra Dragon and click Glaive Rush. It smacks balance. We see the rise of Roaring Moon again. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Meowscarada's on the rise. Great Tusk obviously as great as it is, and Iron Valiant's on the rise even more as we see like going forward. So a lot of people are starting to use the Terra Flying Roaring Moon more and more on Shedtail teams with Orthworm. Hatterene has moved up as well. Hatterene just fits on basically every team, right? It's usually a Jet Bun if it's not the Calm Mind set or the Stored Power Nuzzle set, and it's just great on Sun. Great on balance, great on offense, just the anti-hazard Pokemon. A lot of Iron Valiant usage has gone up, whereas Dragapult usage slightly, I feel like a weatherman, but slightly lowered over here from 24 to 23%. I feel like the Go usage has dropped down because a lot of people also stopped using Garg as much. Like Garg was number 13 in February, but right here it's number 20, as you guys can see in this. And a lot of that has to do with also the prep for it. Like we saw a lot, even in the Smogon Premier League, right? The tournament that I was covering, we saw a lot of people run like Covert Cloak for Garg, and then Garg started running Curse. And now even the fact that people are using Kingambit more and more, and you have to use Focus Blast on Go in order to deal with Kingambit, which kind of ruins like the Nasty Plot Recover set and things like that, unless you're like Specs Go. It's definitely started to drop off more from there. I mean, considering the number 2 Mon completely overthrows, and even the number 1 Mon can do it, I think it makes a lot of sense. Dragons are at an all-time high since it's been a couple years. It's been a couple years, right? That dragons have been this good. But Roaring Moon, Baxcalibur, Dragonite, and Dragapult all putting it up. And I love that none of them stay their type. Well, okay, 2 of them stay their type, right? Baxcalibur sometimes Terras into Dragon, Dragapult sometimes Terras into Dragon, but you'll also see Baxcalibur be Ice or like a Resistance type, right? Like Fairy or even Ground for strong Earthquakes, and like a Thunder Wave from Rotom Immunity, and Dragapult can obviously Terra Ghost and Dragon. Those are the 2 most common ones, but you'll also see offensive ones with Terra Ground as well, or even Terra Fairy going forward. Zoroark has managed to make its claim, and OU just staying up. I think it's a fantastic Pokemon, Sicilian Zoroark, and I'm very, very happy to see it. It's just like it disguising the fact that it has immunities, right? Whereas the other one only had Psychic immunity, but this one has the normal immunity, and the not only that, but the Ghost and the Fighting immunity are really big. You come in on Great Tusk, Rapid Spin, you deny that, you threaten it with either a Spec, Shadow Ball, Hyper Voice, or a KO with Grass Knot. And Hydreigon has moved up from 34 to 31 in usage. Sub Nasty Plot is going crazy right now. Draco Meteor Earth Power is the best set. You also have Flash Cannon, Dark Pulse, just overall coverage. And Meowscarada really climbing up to that number 9, I think is sick. A lot of people are using Heavy Duty Boots Spike sets, knockoff Banded lead sets. It's just a solid Pokemon. And it's really cool because in the beginning of this generation, you would say, or you would argue, maybe after like a few bans, Skeleturge was the best starter. And then it would be Quaquaval just because it dealt with Chi-Yu and Chien-Pao, and we'll get into that in a bit. And then Meowscarada was dead last, right? Out of the 3 starters that were in OU, Meowscarada was dead last. And then flip it around, right? In VGC, on the flip side rather, in VGC, it was number 1. and whereas the others were below it. So it's really interesting to see. I even tweeted about that, I remember. And also, this isn't a video with a lot of visual. This is just, feel free to tab out, do whatever you guys want to do. But then now, Meowscarada is number 1, Skeletor is number 2. In terms of the starters of this generation, right? There's still obviously Cinderace and Greninja, which are really good. But in terms of the starters of this generation, speaking of Greninja, look at it at number 34 in usage. That mon might end up falling down to UU, which is pretty crazy to think about. Same thing with Iron Treads. Iron Treads barely missed out the cutoff. Same thing with Armarouge. Like, they barely missed out the cutoff. Breloom has more usage than Iron Treads and Greninja, which is interesting because I feel like I see no Breloom at all when I'm laddering on Pokemon Showdown. But let's look at the first tier changes as well for what we're doing. So on the rise, right, we'll talk about the OU rise, right? So right now we have Slowking rising from UU to OU. I think it was a matter of time. Slowking in general is such a solid Pokemon, even without Walking Wake. Obviously, the big thing is Walking Wake being released. People are starting to use Slowking with Chilly Reception because it switches in and it allows, it's basically teleport, right? It allows you to get in your teammate for free, especially because Slowking is so slow. Whereas Teleport was a -6 switch, Slowking is really slow. So Chilly Reception is based on speed, but because it's slow, it can get the Chilly Reception off anyway. It's a decent switch into like, it can even take like Specs Draco, Specs Shadow Balls if it wants to. If it Terra Waters, which it sometimes does, it can take on Golden Go and Dragon Ball Specs moves. They don't even 2 KO, which is pretty crazy. And this is like a standard set, right? With Future Sight going around, some Thunder Wave, some might have run Flamethrower. It was a good Pokemon before Walking Wake, and it had a lot of OU usage even during the Chien-Pao metagame. So I won't say that Walking Wake is the cause of this, but it definitely influenced people using it more and trying out. It's like, wait, this is a good Pokemon even if my opponent doesn't have a Walking Wake. Because this mon was 100% used during the Chien-Pao meta. I used it. I also used it during the Chi-Yu meta as well. Because with Terra Water, you don't die to nothing and you can surf and kill it. So it moved up from UU to OU. Pretty big, I think, overall in usage stats. Just because if you look at the UU usage stats, it wasn't like in top 10 of usage, but it was still definitely using UU as a pivot. Same thing, right? It could take hits from everything with Terra Water and Surf and things like that. So it was a really good pivot. It wasn't top 10, but it was still a really good pivot in the UU tier. Whereas if we go over to the flip side, we go from OU to UU, the drops. So let's start off with the starter. So let's go Quaquaval first. This mon ended up falling down finally from UU or from OU to UU. And honestly, a lot of this has to do with the fact that it was really, really good during the Chien-Pao and Chi-Yu metagame just because of its natural resistances, could Aqua Step, could sweep. It was better when Cyclizar was there too because you could Shed Tail pass to it. But now that Amoonguss is literally standard on teams right now with Eject Button, Toxapex has risen up in usage again, and it's starting to run these Assault Vest sets. It's just not good. It's just not and I'm sure like some SD, Terra, Electric, or Ice Spinner offensive set could work with no close combat and you go like Aqua Step, Ice Spinner, Terra Blast, Electric, something like that could still work, but it just having to go through, and also like Slowking usage as well, so it can come in, Chilly Reception, Future Sight, and deal with it. The fact that what's being used is not in its favor. But on the flip side though, sorry, I gotta order this right. On the flip side, in UU, this Pokemon is insane. I've used it on the high ladder multiple times. I've used it on the high ladder. Okay, I want to say 15 times. And that might not seem like a lot, but that's high ladder, and that's me playing on high ladder with Jandad. This mon is insane. The Swords Dance sets with Aqua Step on dual screens. The Bulk Up set on Aqua Step with dual screens. I wouldn't be surprised if this mon ends up being suspect tested in the UU tier because it is an insane sweeper, especially with Terra, right? You can Terra Fire, which gives you the Fairy Resist, and the important thing about Terra Firing, and like, why would you want to make your Water type weak to ground type attacks, etc., or your Water type weak to water type attacks? The big thing about Terra Fire is that you can touch Talonflame without having to fear the Flame Body, because Flame Body Talonflame is the biggest thing, and it's actually, as you see right there, number 1 in usage, and number 2 in usage is Scizor, so you still resist Bullet Punch. So that's one of the big things about it. So it is an incredible Pokemon. It has so many sets, right? You can run Bandit with U-Turn, Wave Crash. It can be a support heavy duty boot set with Rapid Spin, and it can be the Bulk Up or Swords and Sweeper on dual screens, whether it be Espeon or Grimmsnarl. It is an incredible Pokemon in UU, and I think it's gonna make it's gonna just fit right in. Right? So, Decidueye has, let's look at the other star. Decidueye's falling down as well. I don't know if it's going to be that great in the UU tier. Like, Once again, if with Swords Dance sets, maybe it could do something, but it's just, I don't know. If you look at the actual tier itself, I don't see it being that fantastic. In theory, it beats a good chunk of these Pokemon like Gengar. It can Shadow Sneak, but then it has Long Reach, so it doesn't have to worry about touching Talonflame. The big thing is that it lost Poltergeist. That's the huge thing, right? So it doesn't currently have Poltergeist. I'm sure with Move Tutors eventually coming, or Home, or if Home does end up giving us the moves back, because we've heard Home isn't giving us moves back, and then we've heard again that Riddler Koo said, oh, that might have been a mistranslation or whatever from it, right? Like, it's decent, right? Like, it could deal with Donphan, deal with a Powdon via Spec Sets, Tyranitar, U-turn, and that Shadow Sneak priority, but like it not having a strong physical, especially in a terrestrialized meta, right? Imagine it had Poltergeist and it can Terra Ghost and make that thing even stronger. It was already strong enough for it, but wasn't good enough in OU at all. And nobody's surprised by that, right? That it not being good in OU. Literally nobody's surprised by that. It doesn't have a good enough stab. I have to Terra to give this thing Terra Blast if I want a decent Spirit. Spirit Shackle is just not strong enough as well. Spirit Shackle being like 80 base power, preventing them from switch out, but you're not doing any damage with it. So fed on the UU. We'll see how it ends up doing in the UU tier. Can trap some of the waters and obviously ground ties to Spirit Shackle and threaten things. Like, I'm sure you can get any Pokemon to work with Terra, but I think it's gonna fall down to RU, NU type of thing going forward. Iron Leaves has fallen down from OU to UU. I mean, this just makes an insane amount of sense, right? It has a terrible base, base typing, right? So its base typing is really, really bad. And then look at the top usage Mons, right? Can't switch it on knockoff from Great Tusk very well. Dragonite just sets up on it. Gambit Sucker Punches. Even if you Terra fighting, like, you've just given up your Terra. And Gambit, if you Surge Dance, will Terra as well alongside you. So it has trouble breaking. And I think the big thing about this Pokemon is, it's funny because I actually think this Pokemon is good. But I think that it just happens to be in a metagame where there's no Tapu Koko, right? If I want to use this with electric terrain, I gotta use freaking Pincurchin, and that's a bad Pokemon on a team. Yeah, it gets some spikes and stuff, but it will die most of the time, even if it has recovery. Tapu Koko, whereas, has high speed, forces out Pokemon, has a secondary good dual stab, could actually use and Terra if it really wanted to, and just really put in a lot of work from that. But this Mon just doesn't have what it takes in the OU tier currently. But in UU, if you look at top 10 in usage, one set I used on dual screens was Terra Fire, for the exact same reason, being able to set up on the number one Pokemon. Scizor and Talonflame have 30 and 31% usage, right, respectively, excuse me. So, and you naturally set up on Sandy Shocks because of your typing. You can set up on Donphan because you're typing, because it's weaker than Great Tusk knockoff. You can set up on Hippo because of your typing. So I Terra Fire with it, resist Bullet Punch, can't be burnt, can't be can't be burnt by Flame Body if I touch it. Can't be, because Psyblade makes contact, even though it doesn't look like it makes contact, but it makes contact, attack. That's because the sword is like an extension of, people think it's like an extension of your arm or whatever, so I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that it makes contact, but why doesn't Secret Sword make contact? Whatever. Anyway, I know Psyblade's physical, but still, we have a bunch of physical moves that don't make contact, right? But regardless, I'm going on a tangent for no reason. Being Terra Fire on dual screens, +2 Psyblade knocks out Talonflame. You can Swords in front of it. You use your booster energy with the speed, which, you know, makes you take out some attack, but then you can do some HP. I believe it's like you have to go Jolly. I believe it's 90 HP or 90 stats you end up taking it, right? Because you can only go 336 speed. This is how you get the booster energy. You can only go 336. Yeah, it's 90, 96. All right, so, or something like that. So you can do this with booster energy, and then Swords Dance variant. This Mon was really good, and you just do the standard set, right? Close Combat, Psyblade, Leaf Blade, respectively, and this is good. This is solid. You can set up on Sandy Shocks. You're faster than Scarf Sandy Shocks with a booster energy, and in general, it's going to be strong. It's very strong. The only thing you have to worry about is like Iron Jug Revenge killing you, and that's if you stay in this form. If you Terra Fire, it cannot kill you at all. Even if it Terra Grounds, and I'm talking about booster energy versus booster energy. Even if it Terra Grounds, if you have screens up, it won't kill you. So definitely a solid Mon, in my opinion, down there. I'm excited to see how it works. I mean, it fell down from OU for a reason, right? Like, it's just not very good versus the top. Like, the top few Mons needs Terra to do anything, and it forces you to use your Terra. And the big thing is, again, it doesn't have the good partner. If Tapu Koko was here, I'm sure Iron Leaves would be insane. I think it's pretty good in national decks from what I've heard. So lastly, we have Pelipper falling down from OU to UU. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that people are using Sun a lot. and this is not to say that Rain is not good. I used Rain very, very recently with Samurai. I know it performed fine in OU. But Rain has to deal with Claude, which has risen up even more, right? It's number 18 now. A lot of that has to do with Walking Wake, which isn't even that great of a Pokemon, and it's a good Pokemon, but it's not great, right? It wasn't banned for a reason. That people called it an SBL Walking Mid. It had a 23% win rate in the Smogon Premier League, the recent tournament that happened with it, and the only reason it had a 23% win rate was because it was fighting other Walking Wakes. So even when it lost, it won because there was 2 Walking Wakes being used. I think every matchup where it had no Walking Wake on the other side, I think they just lost. And it's not like using Slowking on my team, using Clodsire on my team is like this huge metagame change, right? Using Toxapex on my team is, well, Toxapex is more of a thing that started rising up in the past 2 months with Assault Vest, which is really cool, but it just naturally still fits and deals with it. So, yeah, it wasn't, I guess it's not Rain's day, right? It has to deal with Sun, has to deal with that, has to deal with every bulky water in the damn tier. I will still say that Rain is very good, and I think Rain and Yu is going to be incredible, right? Rain and Yu is going to be incredible. If you just look at the Yu tier, and then you still have Barraskewda, you have Water Tauros that you can still use, Floatzel, Gyarados takes huge advantage of it, even Iron Jugulis. Like, not all Iron Jugulis sets run fire moves. You can run Hurricane, Earth Power, Dark Pulse, Taunt, and that's an incredible set with Booster Energy. I actually think Iron Jugulis is insane in UU. I think that might even be something that gets looked at in the future too. So Rain is solid in the UU tier for sure, especially because they just got Quaquaval. They do have to face Sand, which is the most common weather down there because, I mean, Tyranitar and Hippo are top 10 in usage, but Rain is good, very, very good. And they have all the, you're not missing anything, right? There's nothing in OU that you would want on your Rain besides Azu that is as an offensive threat, and Greninja as an offensive threat. I guess Walking Wake, but like, I mean, that's more Sun than Rain. Like, you have all the Swift Swimmers, you have strong water types that can use it too. You have flying types that appreciate the Hurricane as well. So Rain falling down big. From RUBL to UU Haxorus, I think Haxorus has a lot of usage on screens in my opinion. It's really good with Terra Steel. It is a great Scream Tail breaker because a lot of people use like Scream Tail balance. So with Terra Steel, Lumberry, you just set up, you Swords Dance or Dragon Dance. You don't even need dual screens. This monster is good in general. Obviously, the Mold Breaker ability as well. You can go from there. So it's no longer a BL Knight. And this is why Blender and I can't launch BL Knights, because every damn Mon in BL keeps moving up in tiers, man. Look at right here on this list. We got 3 BL Knights that just moved up to the tier above it. If you actually look at this list, insane. And then from RU to UU, we have Alamola, Rotom Heat, Tauros, and Tauros. Now, the latter 3, those are there because Scizor, right? Scizor has just came, if you look at the top 10, Scizor has just come down to the tier, right? So what happens when Scizor comes down to the tier? Pokemon that were solid but didn't have enough usage to be used before start to move up. So Tauros, they already moved down before, but both Tauros have moved back up. I think Blaze and Aqua are both insanely good Pokemon. Whether it be bulk up sets, I know Piff was actually laddering at the top of the ladder with Alamola plus Tauros. We actually fought him in the Road Top 10, not on the episode that's going up on Jamvet's channel because I accidentally deleted mine by accident. But yeah, I accidentally deleted mine by accident. Yeah, I did. But he was using a balance with like Wo-Chan, Hippowdon, Alamola, and then Trailblaze Tauros, which has been seeing usage. Bandit is good as well. With Rain, Bandit is good, especially now that Rain comes back. Bandit's really good on Tauros Aqua. And then defensively, it's just a solid Tauros switching. Or solid, excuse me. Well, it is a solid Tauros switching, right? Tauros Water fits in the Tauros Fire. But Fire can be a Tinkaton switching. Fire can be... Water can take on Talonflame depending if it's Will-O-Wisp or not. Some run Defog, Roost, Brave Bird U-Turn, which I don't think is that great, but... they're both good Scizor switch-ins. They check Tyranitar as well. They check Donphan. They check Hippo. So they're good. Rotom Heat, checks Tinkaton, checks Scizor. Good offensive tricker as well. And then Alamola, just a extremely solid wish passer on those fat teams like Hippo and Wo-Chan that are super rising up in popularity. So, I mean, this is big for the RU tier to lose those Pokemon. Because if you look at RU and usage, I guess none of them were top 10, which is decent. But I think Tauros was really good. I think Tauros was really good in the RU tier. And I guess you have Blissey as well. So maybe it's not that huge of a deal for RU considering the top 10 usage wasn't there. I would have to look at the viability rankings. But I remember Flamigo being one of the gods of the tier, and same thing with Slowbro as well, because it can actually take on Flamigo. So it's really interesting to see these mons like Slowbro and Blissey and RU as well. So maybe not that huge of a change. It's interesting to see Altaria at number 9. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact they can defog, one of the better defoggers in the tier. But really interesting to see that at number 9. So maybe RU is not going to miss it as much as it could, which is cool. And as well, from NUBL to RU, we see... wait, no, that was UU. That was, yeah, RU to UU. Okay, so let's look at the UU to OU drops, and then we'll go to the RU. So UU to OU drops. Brute Bonnet, Indeedee, and the dog. I think the dog is probably the biggest one. But Brute Bonnet, great on Sun, but I mean, the more Sun stays high up in the tiers, I don't know what Indeedee that is. That's male Indeedee, okay. And Lycanroc. So first off, let's look at the stats one more time. None of those mons are in top 10. Regular Lycanroc was an RU, whatever. But if you look at, or excuse me, UU, none of those mons are in top 10. None of them were the most incredible Pokemon. I don't think that size spam is that amazing in UU. I think it's better in OU specifically. This is the one, right? Yeah, this is RU. I think it's better in OU specifically just because of Armor Rouge and those type of builds. Like I think Armor Rouge really in Hattering, like it really holds those builds together. But UU to RU, I mean, Brute Bonnet's a good Pokemon, right? In its own right. Brute Bonnet is a good Pokemon. It's not going to work in UU. There's no Sun, right? Torkoal moved up to OU, so it makes sense that the Pokemon that could put work on Sun moves down to UU, or moves down to RU. I think it's decent in the RU tier as like a setup Pokemon of sorts, right? Because it has strong close combat, has Sucker Punch, Seed Bomb, has Spore, has Taunt. So I mean, it's a decent, like, and with Terra, it's pretty good. Like, right, it has 127 attack. Unfortunately, it doesn't get Swords Dance, but it does get Growth, which you could try some manual some. But I think just Growth regular is pretty decent. You get +1. Can actually threaten like Bronzong, Slowbro, Blissey builds with Crunch, close combat, etc. Can Terra into a defensive Fairy type for Flamigo to eat a hit and then deal with it as well. Sucker Punch would be good too. Maybe it'll be a solid mon in this tier, right? Like, I mean, yeah, if Terra has really good coverage. Like, it already has good coverage, just needs the ability to survive. And it already has good bulk too. And Grass being able to switch in on water type attacks and no Scald in this generation is pretty big. So maybe be decent down here. I think Indeedee might be a little bit better, if anything, right? Like 105 base special attack is pretty insane. It losing Expanding Force obviously is huge. But besides Crook and Sableye, Weavile, Scarf, Dazzling, Gleam sets can be cool. This tier already has Espeon, which is... Well, actually, did they lose Espeon? They've been lost Espeon, right? What tier is Espeon? Is Espeon UU now, right? Yeah, they've been lost Espeon. Okay, so that's actually pretty big for RU. Yeah, I mean, I use a lot of Espeon and UU as well, so it makes sense. But with Psychic Surge, there's no like unburdened mon that I can think of at the top of my head that can use this. Maybe Scarf. I think Scarf would be the big one, right? Because it's base 95 speed, which is more than Flamigo's base 90. So Scarf can be good with like Psychic. You run Dazzling Gleam. You can either Psychic, Terra Psychic, or you can Terra Fairy from there. And then it has Healing with support for the team as well, and even Trick. So that's about it when it comes to Shadow Ball, Hyper Voice. So I think Scarf and Specs will have some usage for sure. I do think that if you run Specs, you obviously run Psyshock for Blissey. But I can see this having some usage. Gardevoir being one of the better Fairies and Psychics and Fairies in this tier, right? And Psychic, it's both. Right, offensive Fairy, it's Psychic in this. Damn it, man! I'm like throwing myself off. But the best offensive Fairy and Psychic in this tier means that it already has like a roll over it. But maybe like Gardevoir plus that combo could work, or Toxtricity would set up, and no Prime already. I don't know. Interesting. It's cool to see Revroom at number 8. I know Revroom's at number 8 because it takes on Gardevoir at number 4. So, I mean, that's not going to stop Revroom usage, just having a stronger Psychic. I think the big thing is going to be Lycanroc that's going to shake it up, right? Wasn't that great in UU, but especially with all the Tauros moving up and everything, and the defensive Mons and Hippo and everything. But you look at the RU tier, and Swords Dance Tough Claws is strong as hell. It's strong as hell. I feel like Lycanroc was RU at a point. It's actually RU. They actually quick banned it. It's RUBL. Yeah. Okay. So I mean that means it doesn't matter. It's literally RUBL. So it's literally been quick banned. So Yeah, I was about to talk about it being insane in this tier and probably getting banned. Yeah, so I believe it was quick ban before though. I think it was quick ban before. So it went from RUBL to UU, and then it dropped back down, and then it goes back into its previous tier, which was RUBL. So there's nothing to even talk about there. And we already talked about RU moving up to UU, which is there. And then from NU to RU, we already talked about all of them, but Titan went back up, which is pretty cool. So from NU to RU, we have Titan moved up, and a Bomb Snow moved back up. So I guess people are using more Veil plus Titan now, which is nice to see. Copper Raja and Frostmoth moving up is so big for the NU tier. Like, it's insane. Like, it's actually crazy how big that was. That was the steel type of the tier. That was literally the steel type of NU. There is no steel type right here without Terra. That Copper Raja was literally the steel, and it became fairy, but it was literally the steel type of the tier that can get up rocks and everything. Frostmoth was probably a mon that would have eventually been banned from the NU tier, but it was an incredible Quiver Dance user as well. Like, it's actually insane that Frostmoth moved up. So we're moving obviously to NU and talking about the NU changes, but it moving up is insane, right? Quiver Dance sets were crazy. I know sub Quiver Dance sets with leftovers were actually insane too, and Whiscash moving up is probably the funniest thing to me. And you know why Whiscash moved up? It's not anything crazy like, oh man, it's a Dragon Dance sweeper. There's no freaking way somebody's using Whiscash enough to Dragon Dance. Someone on the ladder is using Whiscash. Why can't I spell this damn mon? There it is, because I was looking at that. But someone on the ladder is using this mon with some spikes and some stealth rock. And that's about it. That's literally what somebody's using. I guess if you look at the tier itself, it can eat a hit from Flamigo. It can eat hits from Crocodile. It can eat it. It doesn't care about Blissey. Shrugs off Palisade. Can eat Rever Room. Can eat Mudsdale. I guess it makes sense as an offensive, like as a defensive, spiker. So that's really funny to think about. That's actually very, very funny to think about. But I think the biggest losses there are obviously Frostmoth, which is something that I think would have been suspect tested eventually in NU or banned. For sure, I think any Quiver Dancer this generation is insane, especially with Terra or Coriolis. I'm looking at you. But Copper Raja is probably the biggest change for the tier because now it just lost its steel type. It literally lost its only steel type that was good. Let me look at PU real quick to see if they have any steals that they'll swoop up. I'm looking. Berserker, nobody's using that in NU. Maybe. Yeah, damn. So they just lost their steel type in the damn tier. Am I stupid? Am I missing something? Like, I'm looking. I'm talking to myself, by the way. That's rhetorical. You don't have to answer that. I'm stupid in the chat. I can't wait to talk about that. I understand. I'm dumb. So, anyway, those are some pretty big changes. Specifically, Frostmoth and Copper Raja. Obviously, Titan plus a Bomb Snow is great. Aurora Veil is great. And Whiscash is cool for that. But from RE to NU, though, we got some changes from that. So, Sun, again, Charizard just going to keep falling down. Makes sense. No defog right now either, which is pretty big. Barraskewda moved from RE to NU. This is probably the biggest thing. Again, no rain in lower tiers means that the rain setters are probably going to keep going. This thing doesn't have flip turn, unfortunately, but it's probably still pretty nasty in the tier. It's the fastest Pokemon on the tier, which I believe in NU specifically, right? Nobody's using freaking Electrode in NU. So it should be the fastest Pokemon on the tier. Yep, it is the fastest Pokemon on the tier. And close combat, liquidation, your standard dot, right? Your close combat, your liquidation. If you look at NU, look at every single Pokemon at NU and look at the combination of Psychic Fangs, close combat, Aqua Jet, and liquidation, right? Like that combination, 2 KOs or OKOs, everything. And you can tear a Psychic or Fairy, probably Fairy if you want to do a defensive one, but you can tear a Psychic to live close combat from Scarf Pissimian, which is 47% in usage, by the way. Freaking on 50% of teams. Half the teams you fire are going to have Pissimian and Sandaconda. Makes sense. Sandaconda is the best ground type. Set up rocks and glare and do all of that. Electros is at 20% in usage right now. That mon is damn near broken in that tier. It could just coil and Drain Punch. The fact that they give it Drain Punch now actually solved it is insane, right? Cool to see Jolteon at number 8, by the way. Calm Mind, and obviously Terra is really nice. But yeah, I think Barraskewda is broken. Just on like face value, Barraskewda looks absolutely broken in the NU tier. Just again at face value, and you kind of hit everything. You can Terra Water as well, which I think would be probably its more Like, you can run Life Orb. Like, Life Orb is really good, but also Choice Band. But, like, yeah, I'm sure we might see even some variations of Manual Rain in the tier itself. But this thing, just being able to come in on slower Pokemon, which it's the whole damn tier, or even a fast Pokemon like Jolteon, and literally pick up a KO for free, right? Unless it's random Scarf Jolteon, is wild for the tier itself. So Barraskewda, don't know how long you're going to last, but I know you're going to be a really good Pokemon. Unfortunately for Charizard in this case, like if it had Defog, it'd be solid, but I wouldn't be surprised if Charizard ends up falling down. Also, because I forgot to say this, if you guys want to pick up my Draco Shaker, feel free to use code AIM, you can get 10% off. You'll be supporting me. And if you want to pick up anything Advanced GG, obviously you can use code AIM, but caffeinated energy drink 18+. But link is down below. I always forget to say that. I probably don't, but Charizard lost Defog, and it also does not have Roost currently. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys, like maybe you'll see it on some offensive manual Sun teams, because I mean it's Fire is really strong, and so is like you still have Fire Blast / Overheat, you still have Hurricane, and you can Focus Blast. And then you can Overheat or some crap like that, right? Like, you can get Specs, you can run Boots. But its biggest thing is that Zard just absolutely lost Roost and Defog, which was like a PU staple last gen. So it not having, if it actually had Defog this generation, it would be used. It would be used in like even RU, NU, just because there's like this real big lack of hazard control. Nice. Blender just told me attacks win, so that's fire. But yeah, anyway, so Charizard, I'm not going to be surprised if it keeps falling down lower and lower and lower. That's the biggest thing. Floatzel fell from RE to NU. I mean, Pelipper was OU, and then now it's UU again. It's really funny because Floatzel and Barraskewda might see usage in UU now. Again, so if Barraskewda does get banned, or doesn't, it might end up just moving back up to UU just because obviously it can use rain. Now, Floatzel is incredible, right? Floatzel is, and I'll probably make a short on it just because it's good content, but Floatzel is the best Swift Swim Pokemon we have in the game. And can our Gen 4 stands just, can you guys give yourself a pat on the back, man? Because you have been waiting a long time for this Pokemon to be good. You have been waiting a long time for this Pokemon to be good, my friends. And you know what? The wait was well worth it because it is currently the best Swift Swim Pokemon in OU, in UU, I don't care any tier, and that's all because of Wave Crash and Terra Water. It is, even though it's weaker, base stat wise, like by a lot, right? 105 versus that, even though it's weaker, if you go Adamant, Liquidation, all that crap, 379 versus 339. The difference is this is an 85 base power move and this is a 120 base power move. Take notes while charged. It is a 120 base power move, and with Terra Water, it OHKO's like Dragapult, like a 2 KO's defensive, 2 KO's Toxapex type of thing, right? With Stealth Rock guaranteed. So like this thing is insane. So I mean, Floatzel falling down has to more so do with the fact that there is no Pelipper down there. But don't be surprised if you pull up in an OU battle and you still see a Floatzel. Don't be surprised if you pull up in a UU battle and you see Floatzel. It's gonna be it's still good. These two are still staples on Rain, and on Floatzel is more of a staple right now on Rain than Barraskewda is, which is crazy. And that's all because Barraskewda doesn't have Wave Crash, but also because it lost Flip Turn. If it still had a Flip Turn, you'd probably see the Floatzel Barraskewda combo, literally, going on in OU. But yeah, Rain dropping more and more. It's actually funny because the RU tier is probably the worst tier, literally, for Floatzel. Literally the worst tier for Floatzel, simply because number one in usage is Slowbro. It is literally the worst tier for Floatzel because of Slowbro. Slowbro is probably like the best answer in the damn game to this Pokemon. So the fact that RU has it, like it's better in UU and OU. It's probably even better in Ubers than it is in, no, because there's Koraidon, but than it is in RU. So like sometimes there's tiers that even though they're lower, a Pokemon will do worse in, but it'll be better in a higher tier just because the standard Pokemon are not good, are not in that tier that would naturally wall it. So yeah, and lastly, I think this is probably the biggest win for NU, and it's interesting to see that it fell off from RU. But I guess, with Reverum being there, Toxtricity, yeah, RU looks way too stacked for Florges, which is interesting. I'm sure it'll eventually go back, but losing Heal Bell is a big thing. But Florges has fallen down to NU, probably the biggest blessing NU got right now, because besides Eevee, Dachsbun. I like Dachsbun, even though it's probably Dachsbun. Dachsbun, besides that mon being down there, there's no Fairy. in this damn tier. So, and there's a plethora of fighting types that are insane, and they all Terra Fairy, and everything actually Terra Fairies in this tier, but there's no actual pure Fairy. So having a good Wish Passer, there's Frigarath, that can still do it. But having a good Wish Passer that naturally resists fighting type attacks without having to Terra is really nice. So Wish, Calm Mind sets might be able to do something. You still have your coverage move as well. You can run random, you can run Grass Knot or Giga Drain to beat Sandaconda. This Florges is probably the biggest win for NU, right? It can't deal with Muck, which is really cool to see Muck up in usage, and that has to do with the fact that it gets Drain Punch and it also has Toxic Spikes now. But it can deal with Zora, can deal with Sandaconda, can deal with Passimian, can sit on Jolteon, can beat Terra fighting Electros, but a lot of them run Terra Steel. So, and there's no Caparaja as well. So it is definitely a big win for the NU tier in terms of Wish Passing, in terms of bulky support. This thing plus Electros, by the way, and Rabia, if you're listening to this, I don't know if you are, maybe you're at the gym listening to this, you'd be working out like that. But we got to build something with like bulk up, Drain Punch, Electros plus Florges. Like this seems like it, because like the only reason that Mon dies is because we let it take damage. Like I feel like this thing being able to Wish Pass into that. I wish we could dry pass in this with Baton Pass, so you can go for Wish and then go for a Baton Pass, a slow Baton Pass, and then bring in Electros. I wish we could do things like that, but they banned the move Baton Pass. You can do that in Draft League though, and it's good. But probably the biggest win for the NU tier. And then the last thing I want to talk about for NU before we get into PU is that Oricorio moved up from PUBL to NU. I'm going to tell you something, guys. Look at Oricorio. We'll look at every Oricorio, right? Or this Oricorio is NU. This Oricorio is PUBL. So both of them got banned from PU. And then you have an RU and NUBL. All the Oricorios will eventually be banned in their tiers, and the lower tiers they'll be banned, or they're moved up. And Oricorio is the exact same mon. Yes, Oricorio Fire doesn't have a great base one as like the natural resistance of Oricorio Sensu, the ghost one, and Oricorio Pom Pom, the electric one, which naturally resists like close combat and also is not weak to knockoff like Sensu, and has a good and this Fire isn't as great spammable in this tier as like electric and ghost would be. Ghost is probably one of the most spammable types, right? But being able to Terra ground or grass, and listing getting Quiver Dance was the biggest buff for it. And it's going to be used. That's basically it. That's all I have to say when it comes to that Pokemon. All right, so let's look at from NU to PU. First off, we'll look at the rises. That is a Hisuian Zoro. Yo, what are you doing down there, little guy? I gotta look at this guy's stats. I gotta look at this. Oh, okay, it's faster and has 85. You know what? No. Are people using this thing and like using Memento? I gotta see this thing. I gotta see this thing in action. I played a lot of NU with Rabia, and I have never seen this thing once. But it moving up from P to NU, who is spamming this on the ladder? Who the hell is doing this? Who is doing this? Now, I mean, I gotta give you my thoughts on it, right? Does it get Grass Knot? You get Grass Knot, little guy? What are you doing down here? I need to know. You have no good moves to use. I guess if everything, I mean, Shadow Ball and Sludge Bomb, U-Turn, Trick, it's basically Zora. And there's Zora from tier. I'm just laughing at this. I just think it's very funny. Someone explain what person did an M pump to the top with this guy. I want to shake your hand, as I'm all about, you know, doing things like that. I like that. I like that. I think that's very funny. I mean, it's a close combat answer, right? Into Passimian that can Memento and boost its stats. I'm not sure. I gotta know who was doing this. Please, if you were doing this, if you're an avid watcher of my channel, or even like a semi-watcher and you happen to be watching this, please give me the team that you were using with this and spamming with this. I need to know. And Rotom Frost moving from PU to NU is pretty cool. Blizzard is very strong, right? And like Thunderbolt Blizzard, you become a fairy type, so you don't have to worry about Passimian and anything really. You don't want to Terra Ice usually. You could if you're Scarf. You could Terra Ice if you're Scarf, and then just have strong spammable Blizzards because you're faster than Passimian. You OHKO it. But yeah, like nasty flat sets with Terra Fairy, with literally Blizzard, Thunderbolt, Terra Blast, I think are solid enough. I think that's like basically the big thing. In terms of PU losing it rather, I don't see it anywhere in the top 10. I mean, Quaquaval is incredible as a Rapid Spinner down there. Magneton, the Eviolite Pokemon are just wild down there too. But it's really interesting. Oh look, Zora is number 4 in Little Cup. That has nothing to do with like NU, PU. any of that, but that's just very funny to me to think about. PU did get some new Pokemon though. They have a Sticky Webber that isn't. They have a Sticky Webber that isn't Kricketot, which is pretty cool, because for some reason Spidops is NU. So I think that's pretty cool. They have a Sticky Webber that isn't Kricketot. Masquerain is way better. It can also Quiver Dance and do things like that. Vespiquen is a solid Pokemon as well down there. If we actually look at the PU tier, it can sit on Quaquaval and can Toxic it, can Spike up. So I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm sure it can run a defensive typing, like maybe even Terra. I want to say Grass looks interesting in this tier. Fairy, obviously, but you don't want to lose to Magneton. I would have said Ground, but Quaquaval is number 1. So I could see Grass. I could still see Fairy for sure, and Water. But I mean, Water can still be everything besides Mag. So maybe Water would be it with like some Toxic and some Spike sets. So I think that's a pretty big win for the PU tier, getting those Pokemon. And lastly, we got Basculin right there. And Basculin, I love this mon. It's really sick. The big thing about this Pokemon is you just adaptability and you Wave Crash, right? This thing, the White Stripe one, when it comes out, gets last respects, and that one's gonna be crazy. But this is like the big thing about it, like literally the big thing. You adaptability, choice, bam, and you just do that. I gotta run a calc. Let me clear all imported sets just so I don't have anything there by accident. And then Basculin, NU choice ban, Jolly Reckless. Really? Reckless was moved more than adaptability? I guess you get double edge and stuff. Oh, that's interesting. Did not know that. No, not Quaquaval. Quaxville. Sorry, I think I've been calling it Quaquaval. What? They don't have a set at this point? Let's just run the most defensive set you can possible. Just because it is Rapid Spin. Sometimes there's offensive with Brave Bird. Head Smash doing that much is pretty wild. Terra Water. And then let's see adaptability. That's a Crystal. Whatever. It has an Adamant Crystal now. Enjoy that. Wave Crash, adaptability. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be putting a choice ban on you. I could just do +1, which is the exact same turns of damage, but not a lot. Not a lot. Maybe the Reckless set is something that's going to be used down here. Who knows? Maybe Reckless could be used in the PU tier because Wave Crash is still very strong. And then you have your Head Smash and Double Edge and stuff like that. I could see that. I could potentially see that. Who knows? I think the biggest wins, though, for the tier are going to be the Masquerain and the Vespiquen. Like, legitimately, I think they're going to be the actual biggest wins for the tier going forward. And then last but not least, let us look at the brand new PU tier. No, not PU. Let us look at the brand new ZU tier. ZU is, didn't show off anything there. ZU is, it's not an official tier, but it's a tier you can play in. So I played some with Blender. I think he's going to upload some today, if maybe, or not, maybe he'll forget. But this tier looks exactly what you think ZU would look like, right? Ice Cube right there. Ice Cube's actually a good Pokemon in National Dex, so the GOAT in National Dex. Like that mon a lot. Delibird for spikes. Beartic plus Hail. It has Snowscape itself, so maybe it could do something. Kricketune, probably be the big one. Oh, excuse me, for Sticky Web down here. Jumpluff has, I've seen Terra Steel Jumpluff. So Jumpluff could do something down there with Terra Steel and Sleep Powder sets. Luxury, I think, and Flareon are the really interesting ones because they can Terra Normal and go for like Trailblaze and, well, yeah, both of them go for Trailblaze. And then those Guts boosted Terra Normal Facades look pretty cool. They both also get Quick Attack, if I'm not mistaken. Persian, strong, Fake Out Technicians, things like that. Skull Villain, I talked about this before in PU. But it's interesting that Manual Sun isn't something that's, maybe it'll be down here because it still has the same Pokemon, right? Jumpluff, Leafeon, literally the mons I named last time. So maybe Manual Sun will be used down here at a point. Pincurchin, damn, bro. You are not Tapu Koko, that's for sure. When I was playing, I used Sudowoodo with like Sturdy Lead, with like Spikes and Stealth Rock because it does get Spikes this generation as well. Tropius is so freaking annoying. It's just gonna do the same damn Ram Battle set. It's literally gonna do the Ram Battle set and the like the sub Leech Seed Protect type of thing going on. Slacking, I mean, it's gonna keep falling more and more. I'm looking at if there's any baby Pokemon that can be used. Fracture and Ghastly look pretty interesting. Fracture, obviously, you can run Eviolite. With the Dragon Dance, 117 attack, right? Like, you can easily run Dragon Dance. I fought one with Blunder. It doesn't have Earthquake, it's Stomping Tantrum, right? So you can run Dragon Claw or Outrage. I just, screw it, go Outrage, right? You got Fairy types down here, right? But they're not that great. Dedane, not going to take an Earthquake. I guess anything could Terra Fairy. So anything could be Fairy and Wigglytuff. But that, you can go Iron Head with Terra Steel. So you can actually resist as well. And then you can go for Stomping Tantrum as your last thing, or Dragon Claw. So I'm sure this thing would be good. I said Ghastly, and I was actually being serious about that because it has base 100 special attack and base 80 speed, so it has a good speed tier, and can actually use. It gets Nasty Plot too. Holy crap! They gave it to the entire line. They didn't give it Focus Blast though. But yeah, like a Nasty Plot Focus Sash set. Why the hell not? With Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Terra Blast Fighting could work. Dazzling Gleam, depending. Terra Blast Sliding though, just because you actually have some normal types down here. Swalot gets Toxic Spikes, so you can see some Toxic Spikes type of team with that, plus like Tropius with the Sub Harvest Leech Seed set, which is so freaking good. It's so freaking annoying. We also saw Toadschool, which is legal down here. So, not you, Politoad. You've had your time in Gen 5. Eviolite, Spikes, Toxic Spikes potentially gives you Rapid Spin as well. Mycelium Mite with Spores are pretty cool. Earth Power, Spore, Giga Drain. You're not really using it for offensive. You're using it for utility and Rapid Spin. That's basically it. And the really, really slow Spores because of your ability. But I definitely would be looking at those Guts users. And again, babies that can potentially do something. Girafarig is another one that can potentially do something. Crocorock and maybe Moxie, Earthquake Sweep. Morgrem for sure with dual screens. For sure, for sure with dual screens could work with some sort of setup, as I mentioned before. I like how Frogadier is down here. Is there any Quiver Dancer down here? There's the dogs barking. Eviolite Stantler could work too. I believe it still works with that. Dunsparce as well. Seems kind of nasty with Eviolite as well. I'm just trying to look. Like anything else looks pretty cool. Pikachu. I wish Pikachu got Fake Out plus Extreme Speed. It doesn't get E-Speed right now because I would use that with Terra Normal in a heartbeat. Sneasel, Vigoroth as well. This all look interesting. Vigoroth in particular can run like the bulk up. Slack Off. Doesn't have Return, but it can run Body Slam or Facade. Facade or Body Slam is fine. You can't be put to sleep if you have Vital Spirit's own ability. So you can have Facade, just in case something statuses you, and then you could have Earthquake, Taunt, Encore, Drain Punch as well. So like it has, this is only doesn't hit Ghost types, right? So you can run a Ghost move as well, like Shadow Claw, to be able to deal with the Ghost types as well. So that's something that Vigoroth can do. So I think this year is going to be like a lot of Eviolite Pokemon, and then you got your your Flareon, Luxray, dual screens type of thing going on, Jump Puff, maybe the occasional slacking if I make a video on it type of thing. I think that's what PU's or ZU exactly is going to be looking like. So ZU is not a tier that usually has representation in official tournaments, but it's still a tier you can play on the ladder. So feel free to play ZU. Let me know your guys' thoughts on ZU. What do you think was the biggest change overall for everything? Right? What do you think was the biggest change? I think UU getting Quaquaval and Rain is pretty big. I also think that, yeah, Frostmoth and Copperajah moving up from NU was pretty big too, because they definitely had a lot of usage down there. But I mean, we could just look at the usage stats, right? Number 7 and number 10, respectively. So, yeah, thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe to your boy. And if you want to pick up my Draco Shaker, use code AIM. The link is down below. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.